Evander Holyfield, one of the greatest heavyweights in the history of boxing. It would seem to me that Evander Holyfield stood a good chance to beat Mike Tyson at any time during his career, for the simple reason that he was the only person who was never afraid of Iron Mike. And Evander's lack of fear was not because of any particular life experience, but because he seems to belong to that rare type of person who is simply not afraid of anything. He is probably the bravest man in boxing history. He is a real athlete. He is always so quiet and calm, but he is a real beast. Just a beast. Furious monster. A devil who gives himself free rein in the ring. Who would have thought that this phrase belongs to a boxer who in his best years was a real beast in the ring himself, Iron Mike Tyson? And he spoke of the great Evander Holyfield, whose name is often only known because of his fight with Tyson. But Holyfield is not just a boxer who lost part of his ear to Iron Mike. He is the greatest heavyweight in the history of the Ring magazine, and one of the greatest principal champions in boxing history. Because YouTube has so little material about Holyfield, and most of it is only recorded fights, today we are going to remember just how much of an outstanding boxer he was. This is neither a detailed biography nor a thorough review of Evander's fights, but we will try to cover the most interesting highlights. Holyfield had been boxing since the age of 8. While his mother was not thrilled by her son's dangerous hobbies, she didn't forbid him from boxing. Evander later recalled that he was still afraid of pain before the age of 18, and he was still his mother's son. His courage and resolve did not come immediately. In amateur boxing, he was good. He was selected to the national team while working in parallel as a salesman. For a time, he worked at an airport refueling planes. But he always started his day with a jog, and after work he went to the gym. Hard work paid off, and Holyfield was selected for the Olympic Games in 1984, though he was disqualified for continuing to hit after the break had been called. Evander ended his amateur career with a rating of 160 wins, 75 by knockout, and 14 defeats. By this time, he had already begun sparring at the same tough level as Mike Tyson. Evander, unlike many, was ready to enter the ring against Mike without the need for extra training. And he seemed to know that he was looking at making millions from the confrontation with Tyson. Evander started his career in professional boxing in the cruiserweight division and went into the ring with a weight of 80 kilograms. When Evander stepped into the ring, he gave everything he had. It was the only way he was able to defeat fighters such as Dwight Muhammad Qawi, whom he battled for 15 rounds. Evander won the fight by split decision. In this duel, he won the championship belt, and the Ring magazine recognized it as the best cruiserweight fight of the 1980s. Placing it 46th in the greatest title fights of all time. Holyfield went on to offer some spectacular defenses. He took the IBF championship belt from Ricky Parkey, defeated Ossie Ocasio, and knocked out Dwight Qawi a second time in revenge. This time, however, there was not that insane drive in him that Tyson publicly fell in love with, such as the lightning strikes and the crushing blows. After some time, Evander gained 10 kilograms of weight and headed into the heavyweight division. At the beginning, it was said that for a heavyweight, Holyfield didn't hit hard enough to take down the other fighters in the division. As if to prove them wrong, on July 15, 1989, Evander knocked out the very decent heavyweight Edelson Rodriguez in the second round. At that time, Tyson was the champion, and many wanted to see a match between these two determined fighters, knowing that it would be a battle for the ages. But on February 11, 1991, Mike Tyson unexpectedly lost to Buster Douglas and then went to jail, though this in itself is a very long and complicated story. Mike had managed to accustom the public to quick knockouts in his fights, causing them to be short, if impressively unique spectacles. Holyfield was criticized as being too calculating, boring, and an unworthy champion, described with phrases like, "Instead of the world heavyweight champion, we now have Evander Holyfield." Although we realize that this does not represent a detailed review of Holyfield's career, we are going to highlight his key fights. Of course, this is the very first heavyweight defense against George Foreman, who was Evander's opposite in almost every respect. Here is his fight against Larry Holmes. And of course, his very first defeat at the hands of Riddick Bowe, one of the greatest boxing fights of the last century. Holyfield lost on points, but earned the respect of the public. Then Evander returned in a definitive revenge fight and won by the decision of the judge. Finally, let's fast forward to 1996, to the fight that many had been waiting for, Tyson versus Holyfield. The bookmakers called Mike the favorite with a ratio of 25-1. There was no doubt, now that he had returned, that Tyson would prove to be Holyfield's downfall.
At all times, obey my commands at all times. You have any questions? Touch gloves, let's go.
Holyfield getting most of it. After 4 rounds, they'll go to the score.
However, in the 6th round, the latter knocked down Iron Mike with a headbutt. He was fined 1 point.
Evander Holyfield is letting it all hang out. He's going for it.
Oh, Tyson's in trouble. Holyfield smothers Tyson. Looking to put Tyson down and end the fight. Tyson is not in trouble. He's saved by the bell.
Mike is out on his feet.
Evander Holyfield. Holyfield continues to dig it. A left hook to the head.
However, in the 11th round, he left Tyson no chance, and the referee stopped the bout. The result was a victory by Holyfield, TKO.
Privilege to witness. Mayhem.
It is Bedlam.
A year later, Tyson's revenge was marked by a scandalous confrontation. Evander was still actively using his head during the fights, sometimes verging on the edge of a foul and giving Mike a cut in the process.
Mike said, what about this fighting? What about this head?
Look at the blood streaking down from the outer portions of the...
Tyson decided to respond, not with crushing blows, which were not up to the strength and power he used to wield, but simply by biting off a piece of Evander's right ear. He was fined 2 points.
He got bit, I think.
Evander Holyfield, look out, he's pushed right here, above us by Tyson. Major controversy here in round 3.
But when he tried to bite Evander's left ear, the fight was stopped.
Mike was having his best
He
run.
did it again. Mike Tyson has bit Evander Holyfield for the second.
Get bit back. I'll tell you what, this is unbelievable.
Many will say that Tyson had a good reason to lose his temper, that Holyfield fought dirty by constantly fighting head first and causing injury to Mike. There were many conflicting opinions on the bout. Tyson was disqualified and fined $3 million, and Evander had 8 stitches placed in his right ear.
That bite. Now here's the bite. Keep your eye on Mike. See, Mike has just seen. Look at him. You can see it. You can see it. There it is.
I can't believe what I'm seeing, fellas.
Bobby.
They're going in real slow motion. Mike gets...
Holyfield moved on from the fight, took revenge on Michael Moorer, defended his title against Vaughn Bean, and then went into the ring against Lennox Lewis. Lewis was significantly superior to Evander, but in the end the judges declared a draw. The scandal was deafening, and a rematch was instantly organized. In the 2000s, Holyfield vs. Ruiz trilogy took place. Each of the fighters took victory in one fight, and the third ended in a draw, although Evander looked much better. Then came the victory over Hasim Rahman. But in 2011, he ended his career and left his titles behind. In this video, we consciously focused on the best years of Evander's career, because it is no secret that in the 2000s his age began to take a toll. Evander earned a lot of money, but in the 2000s there was no trace of his previous millions. The boxer himself admitted that he simply did not know how to handle money wisely. A mansion with 109 rooms is only one of the luxurious expenses of the boxer. And of course, although Holyfield lost part of his ear, he forgave Mike. They had many discussions regarding what happened and fondly remember their previous fights. Evander is certainly not as famous as Mike Tyson will always be. They are just too different. Which one of them would have been the winner if they had met at the height of their ability, before Evander's defeat, before injuries, turmoil, scandals, and Mike's imprisonment? No one can say. Many would say Tyson, who, in truth, was practically unstoppable in his youth. But remember, Evander was never afraid of Mike. He was always ready to take a punch and test Tyson with his tricky boxing style. Evander Holyfield is recognized as one of the greatest boxers in history. But how do you feel about him? What do his fights mean to you and your friends? Share your opinion in the comments, and if you disagree with the facts in the video, let us know. If you like this episode, don't hesitate to support our channel. Like and subscribe now.